call the Town of Northwood Planning Board meeting of May 9th, 2019 to order at 6:40. Present, Select Board Rep. Hal Kreider, Betty Speth, Vice Chair Lee Baldwin, Chair Bob Strobel, Town Planner James Berdeen, Board Administrator Linda Smith, and Board Secretary Susan Pastor. Susan Austin, sorry.
Oh, I didn't.
Voting designation, all members present. We have minutes of April 25th to go over.
Move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Ms. B. Smith, second by Mr. Kreider. Discussion on the minutes. We'll double check. Anybody, anything they want to bring up on the minutes?
Yeah, I'm just going to surround you with microphones,
In stereo.
no matter which way you look.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the...
Hang on a second.
Oh, sorry.
I had to find the page.
Okay.
Page 3, line 3. I'm assuming that should be the area, not the R out back.
Oh, yeah.
Good for you.
And then down on line 39, as it is there, building, I think it should be these lots.
What one?
Last line, 39.
Oh, 39.
Second to last word, page. These lots. Yes. That makes
Either
more
it's
sense.
these lots or it's this lot.
He refers to, yeah,
These, yeah.
these
I
makes
think
more
it's
sense because
these.
he's referring to multiple lots on the subdivision. I doff my editor hat off to you because I didn't catch those. Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, all those in favor, I'm assuming motion and second as amended? As
Yes.
opposed to, yes, okay. It wasn't, the motion was not stated that way, so. I'd like to
Understood.
double check. All those in favor of the motion as amended, or the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, those abstaining. Okay, 4-0-0. Okay. I can't remember the last time we had 5 new cases in a month.
I don't think we have ever had 5 new cases in a month since I've been here.
I don't think, I've had 5 new cases in a month since I've been here.
Okay, but we do.
And I had a,
I have one other question.
yes,
On the agenda, are we rushing things a little bit?
We're in the future.
We already got that. That was already stated, the 9th.
yes, it should be tonight.
Well, now I know to change it when I'm with them.
Right, you wanted to change it for next time. I did have a question though on the numbering. Is,
So I handed out 4 staff reports.
yes,
The one that reads 19-4, pull out your red pens. That's 19-7.
just wanted to double check, thank you.
Which one?
The first one that I handed out reads 19-4, that's 19-7.
I don't see a 19-4.
It's the Overdeck one, the short one.
It's on the
Did you get-
back side of the paper.
I see 5.
It's gonna be tricky.
It's on the back of
No,
1507.
It's on the back of the one that's
on
the
the
notice
back
of
of that.
decision.
And that one
So what's
should
the
be what?
decision?
Oh, 19. Well, read it and
That
find
was
out.
the prior case.
I put all other stuff.
Yeah, be here. You're over here. You're over here.
Oh, okay.
Your
That's where
stuff
I
is
put
already set,
everybody.
because I need to sign.
Trying to keep the whole group compact. Victoria.
The
I'm so confused.
intent is good.
I'm messing my plans, man.
Okay. And if, Hal, we have the notes, staff review comments, piles of paper that were passed around earlier.
Oh,
I
sorry.
get some for Victoria.
They're a little jumbled.
Great, thanks.
You hear?
Okay.
Sorry.
You have the floor.
All
Whichever
right.
one you want to start with.
So Hal, if you're still confused, you've got 4 sheets of paper, so start with the limits as 19.5 and we'll
That one says.
process of elimination.
Right, it has this on the back. Okay.
I knew you'd see us through this, James.
So this one, you'll note on 2 of these, Kyle helped me out again this month because it was a busy month. Also, you'll note that there are 5 cases, but only 4 staff reports right now. I decided that in a time crunch, I was going to put off comments on the design review since nothing that we say at this point is binding anyway. So I'll still have written comments for next meeting, particularly looking at whether any waivers are necessary. And I can give that to the applicant at that point, but if it's not binding, I thought if one needed to wait, that was the one.
Okay.
So 19-5 is a boundary line adjustment. Kyle and I looked through this report this afternoon. So he identified one driveway that is across from this site that should maybe be added just for reference, kind of similar to the discussion we had with the Berry plans last month, just for context to make sure everybody can see where their house is if they want to. And he also commented about changing some of the notes so that we refer to the agricultural soils overlay and the wetlands overlay, both of which are on site and both of which are marked, but that we make the connection between the delineated wetlands are the overlay, the depicted soil type that is good agricultural soils is also the overlay. And I believe in that case it was the soils that are marked 66B is the ag overlay. Other than that, fairly straightforward boundary line adjustment. Kyle and I didn't think that waiver was necessary for a funny shaped lot because they're already funny shaped and they're just changing which one is funny shaped.
Question?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we want to keep this at high
Yeah.
level.
I understand.
Okay.
So when I'm looking at Range Road, are there 2 houses on these lots already? Because I see a little rectangle, which I'm not sure what it represents, and then HSE, which I assume means house, right above James DeLong.
Yeah, I see it.
And what does the little dotted line mean? I don't see it in the legend.
Neither do I.
You know what, I can kind of guess what that is, maybe, but the house is outside of it. I was gonna say if it was, area taken out for current use, possibly. There is a lot, well, the lot's 12 acres.
Yeah.
That is an excellent question.
The house, but if it was current use, the house would be
I mean,
in.
Sure, Bill will know. He drew
It's an
it.
excellent question for Bill Wormel.
Yeah.
Surprised he didn't put it in the legend. Usually he's very meticulous.
He does have note 2 indicating that that parcel is in current use.
Yeah, that's the lot.
But that's,
Let me just see if I understand the general gist of this. The 21835 used to sort of wind around the back to their existing house.
Yep.
So then they either bought or previously owned that lot, and now they're just readjusting the lot line that was long and skinny lot now to be a bigger lot.
Correct. Any other questions?
The only thing that has been helpful is that little chart on the plan where it says the number, beginning, ending.
The change in acreage.
Those are helpful.
I don't have. So the ag soils, though, 66B is only in the one corner. Double checking.
And Kyle checked it on the GIS, and you see the town of Northwood parcel. There is a little V on that soils boundary line
Yeah.
that isn't labeled. I think that little corner is also ag soils that goes onto the town of Northwood parcel.
Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Asking the board.
I guess I'm calling the board.
So maybe they own that lot already. I see there's solar panels on it.
They actually own both.
Huh?
They actually own both.
That's what I mean.
So
Did they own them previously? Did they?
Yes, they've owned
Yeah.
them for
Yeah,
a
they-
bit,
Yeah, that's what I meant, because
moving,
on the
looks like
second
they're
one,
shifting lots from one to the next.
they're just adjusting.
Okay, 19.6.
This is the mini golf.
Okay.
That was, so when Mr. Carter came in for his preliminary, he described the mini golf, but there are a few new things on this application. One of which is a proposed residence for the course manager in the clubhouse. So in my staff report, I have a few comments on the dwelling unit, going down the rabbit hole of what exactly is this dwelling unit. I think it's clearly accessory to the mini golf, but it is not an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
Capital, it is a lowercase accessory dwelling unit. Because we define that as only applying to a secondary unit that's subordinate to a primary residence, and this is the only residential structure on that site. So I think really we're just falling back on this as a mixed-use proposal now. Now that there is a residential component, that is something that this board has the ability to approve, you know, whether or not it's reasonable. And I think that you can still consider some of the requirements for accessory dwelling units as sort of a benchmark for whether or not that's reasonable. And apart from having the owner of the property live on site, I think most of those criteria would be satisfied. So I don't have any, now that I've had time to sit down and think about it, I don't have any outlandish concerns about there being a residence on the site, but I would suggest, you know, walking yourself through those requirements and making sure that yeah, any questions that you have about this being a mixed-use site are answered as part of the public hearing.
How big is this lot overall, James?
I think it's a little, just under 2 acres.
Wow.
I recall from the
I want to say
preliminary.
82,000 square feet sticks in my head.
Would this be year-round
1.88
residence if the
acres.
golf course is only supposed to be seasonal?
I don't have that information. So, great question. Bring it up again.
Remember that.
Yep. Whether the residence will be year-round or not.
You can't put in the neighbor in the winter.
You use fluorescent bulbs? I've seen it done.
So I have some other questions with this one. I noted the septic, and the applicant proposes to submit that for DES review, so that would be a standard condition of approval. You'll note the golf layout, including the proposed service road, are all marked to be designed by Harris, the company that designs the mini golf courses. And we did not receive any additional information apart from that marketing brochure
Nothing.
describing anything that's going to happen on that site. So I started drafting a email to Harris just to ask them, what do you normally do for permits when you come in? I don't think we need to approve the location of every last windmill. but
Thank you.
I think a little bit more information would be warranted. Another new element that at least I don't recall from the preliminary was an identified area for batting cages. And that's in the red. So he's identified one proposed location and one backup location. Those are things, his comment and the comments that he's sharing from meeting with DES are all along the lines of, it's great that you're reducing the impervious surface area. Batting cages tend to be a lot of concrete. So I think that's another thing that we would want more information about the design of that. Because in my experience, the ones where you're lining up next to each other are all just a big sea of concrete with some storm drains in them. But the point is for the baseballs to roll back to the center point and just feed back into the hopper and get thrown out again.
And I would be looking at the marketing brochure. First of all, I see a lot of desert, dry area, and a lot of impervious on the actual layout. That might be a request for some, in conjunction with some more details of the design. One of the other details I think I would like to see, I'm trying to think if it applies, is the square footage of the residence within the building. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask for that, is why. It just,
I don't think it would be appropriate to insist on a floor plan,
you're right.
but I think understanding the total square footage of the structure and what the breakdown between residential and commercial, I think that is appropriate.
That's what I'm looking for.
And I think that's something that should also be handled on the back end as far as building permits go.
Definitely.
But I struggled with figuring that out because the application form describes the clubhouse as 800 square feet. The dimensions on the plan are approximately an 880 square feet clubhouse, but it's also described as being 30 feet high, which would be more than a single story.
Mm-hmm.
Or a very peaked roof.
Yeah, looking at the third page of their marketing documentation, that might be appropriate, with a water wheel on the side. This design review, but do we have information on lighting?
I don't believe so.
It's a change of use. I'm a little rusty on the regulations right now, so bear with me, but it seems as if there's gonna be more coming and going from the site compared to an office park. This is something which, you know, during the summer season, it's gonna get, theoretically on Route 4 could get quite a bit of traffic.
I think he is correct. He addresses that in his narrative. And I think he's correct that the pattern of usage will be very different. And also that you may not necessarily have the same peak time flow. Where an office park, you would have a lot of people coming in at the beginning of the workday and leaving at the end of the workday. And possibly a secondary peak around the lunch hour, but apart from that, you're not going to see much. This, you're probably going to see considerably less traffic on weekdays, and to the extent that you did, it would be concentrated in the evenings, but you would see much higher traffic on the weekend.
What was, it says on here, state-approved existing entrance.
That was a turn-off and associated driveway permit for the prior site plan, which vested, but the applicant has decided not to move forward with the office park.
Yeah, but I guess I share Victoria's concern about the traffic, and I think we'd at least want to talk to the state.
Yeah, and I think that can be easily accommodated with the standard written confirmation from NHDOT that the existing driveway permit is sufficient.
Yeah. So I assume this, since the state granted that, they're far enough away from Harmony Hill Road?
Presumably.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it's like 100, 110, 125 feet.
Is that what?
And between the entrance and Harmony Hill, but I don't quote me on that.
Okay, I thought it was more, but
It might be.
And then finally, he noted both on the checklist and on the plan that he wanted to request a waiver from the 10-foot buffer. We have 20-foot setbacks, and they are in the zoning ordinance. So the number's wrong, and the process is wrong. But at least in the front portion where he suggested he needed that waiver, he wouldn't need a variance because the parking spaces that he's proposing are gravel, so that would not be considered a structure. He's proposing to have a chain link fence, but fences in the zoning ordinance are exempt from setbacks, even though they are structures. However, a but to the but, he is showing the service drive and presumably mini golf activities that are encroaching into that 20-foot setback from Harmony Road. So that service drive would need to be unpaved in that portion, or he would need to get a variance, or he would need to move it to comply with a 20-foot setback, not a 10-foot.
Here's a thought, or here's a question. Does a windmill constitute a structure?
I'm hoping that we can lay the course out so that we don't have to answer that philosophical question.
Yes. And in a case, looking at his 10-foot buffer on Harmony Hill, does artificial turf?
So I think the way it's drawn right now, the easiest solution that I can see is to leave that as an unpaved service road. Which would not be considered a structure,
Okay.
and we can skirt the issue. Otherwise, discussions of artificial turf, discussions of paved walkways, I think we would need to know a lot more about materials, permeability, landscaping, all of that.
I think my concern for that is, I won't say it could be mitigated, but of that discussion, the issue for me would be hardscaping and permeability. You know, looking at the marketing materials, that doesn't, the edging of the putting greens doesn't bother me too much, but if the putting greens are not permeable, that would be much more of an issue.
Right, and that's why I think we need to know, are these turf mats that are just going over dirt and rain can go right through them, or are you putting in some kind of impervious concrete or plastic, what have you, mat down under this that would prevent any of that infiltration?
He's saying how much less impervious coverage there would be, so it was calculated based on.
He is, but even those calculations seem to be hit and miss. There are a lot of variabilities or variables that are still on here. You'll note in the parking area, he has shown two options for what will be paved. One is just coming off of the road and essentially into the pad right in front of the clubhouse. The other extends the entire length of the parking lot. So essentially the circulation aisle will be paved and the parking spaces will not. So I can't say for certain what he used in his calculations of
He doesn't leave that out
permeability.
anywhere.
Right, because he has two different delineations of the parking lot. He's got an approximately 4,000 square foot batting cage that I think is going to be fairly impervious, that I don't know if he counted that or not. I don't know what of the access drive is going to be impervious, what of the course itself is impervious. And he says at one point that the only impervious surface will be the clubhouse that's 800 square feet, but then shows 8,000 square feet of impervious in his calculation. So I wasn't even sure whether that was a typo, because that's an order of magnitude higher. So I think there are some issues that we would want to nail down.
Bob, I didn't see any windmills. Where'd you see the windmill? I saw a water feature.
Every mini golf has a windmill.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, it does have the requisite over-under thing, but
Yeah, okay, well, whatever. I'll tell you right now, if it doesn't have a windmill, I'm against it.
well,
It's not a real meeting.
maybe that could be a
It's not in
condition
the
of
plan.
approval.
Try to beat the windmill.
Make sure there's windmill.
Better have a regulation. Mini golfs have to have windmills.
Usually the last one.
We'll bring it up
Condition
when
of
we,
approval, Bob, condition of approval.
when we do zoning amendments for this year. One last issue.
On the record, I'm joking.
One last issue, if you look at your agenda heading, the residence was not mentioned Nor was it mentioned in the notices that went out, so we have decided to renotice. And we do still have the time to get that notice out so that it will meet the deadline.
So this is basically a multi-use property.
This one. I forgot my extra one.
I didn't go into it in a lot of detail, but I also am not entirely sure what the nature of refreshment is.
Yeah,
And that could conceivably be anywhere from some sort of on-site food prep to we've got a soda machine and some bags of chips. I think to a certain extent that is more of a building code issue of making sure you have the proper kitchen for the level of service that you're planning to provide. But in figuring out what is located where within that structure in terms of how much is residential, how much is clubhouse,
Well,
that might be
if it-
another point of clarification.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't know, but, it might change the septic system design too, depending on how much they have to wash or what they have
Well,
to do.
my suspicion, and just pure speculation on my part, is that it's paper only. So
I'm
it'd be
just,
disposable,
Sort
yeah.
of saw
but-
that.
It says something about paper plastic.
Yeah, I saw it somewhere. in the-
But that also then affects, dumpster size and frequency, and, I saw a septic tank, but I didn't see a leach field, so it might be that it's seasonal only, and it's sized for the seasonal only and then pumped, which is
Well, they-
one way of doing it, but.
They have to have
it's
space for the
clarified.
patrons to,
Right,
yeah. Okay, well,
that's why we have time to take a look at it.
yeah.
I will say that this, excuse the joke, is the most fun application we've had in a while.
It's fun because we get to make jokes like this.
So I'm here for it.
Okay,
Okay, the next one is 19-7 that I marked 19-4. So Hal, you've got a 50% shot.
hold on a second.
So on one side, it's a short staff report. On the back is a notice of decision from the prior site plan application. The applicant was granted conditional approval for an 82-unit self-storage facility in April of 2016. And I've attached the notice of decision from that approval. One of the conditions of approval was that all site work and construction be complete within 3 years of the approval date, and they are not done. So they're requesting a 1-year extension to that timeline. Linda and I had some conversations about whether or not this would technically be vested, but we thought that the safest route, since there was a hard deadline placed in the conditions of approval, was to bring this back for an extension. So that's what you have before you.
So I just want to double check, this one's the one just east of Dave Daco, or between there and the police station, I guess?
First movers or something like that.
First
Yeah.
class.
First class movers.
And there's a quote road going in off on an angle there?
Yes.
Okay,
That's a town road.
That's old.
Class six.
First.
Yeah. yep, okay.
Yeah, these were supposed to be like pre-built units he was bringing in and putting on pads or
Right.
something, yeah.
Right. We brought in some, but I haven't seen them in the, since then. But there's also there's a residence on site. There's wetlands that he's working around. And I think there were supposed to be gates. recall.
Yes.
Um,
So I guess since we are recollecting, do you need to see a site plan to provide context for your discussion?
They're
Trying to think of who was on the board.
I was,
Joe?
Joe? I think Lee
You were-
was.
I was.
I was,
I
yeah,
was.
it was one of the last
Victoria
ones,
was.
yeah.
No.
they're just
As I
asking,
remember,
I
we
think
went
the
on
only
a
one,
site
I
walk.
think the only one who missed
the
it
month
was
before I
Hal.
started.
I don't recollect it.
It was on anymore. Matt was the planner.
It was submitted in December of 15, approved in April of 16.
but is the applicant asking for any changes?
No.
No. Just to have a year longer. They're proposing to finish the site work and construction in this construction season.
Has there been some kind of issue come up that's taking it longer, or?
I don't know any more than what I have in the letter.
Could be something as simple as just wanted to wait to make the investment. Or maybe cash funds limited or something, I mean, who knows, but.
Or it could be that as simple as the time he's buying units
As,
in pieces, or not in pieces, but in,
Yeah.
not buying 82, buying 24 or whatever, some number
yep,
at a time, and the site work isn't done to get the last set in.
I think that's basically what happened. I spoke with the building inspector, he went out and looked, and
Okay.
basically, he's come in for a section, got building permits for that, and
Okay.
there's some that are in process now, but the last ones don't have a building permit yet,
Okay.
or the site work done.
Okay.
If the site work had been done and the permit pulled, then it probably wouldn't have been an issue.
For those who weren't on the board when we heard this, do you want additional information, or?
well, not necessarily additional information, but I know we put limits on these sometimes, but what's the basis for putting the limits on them?
Mainly so they don't drag out for
Ever and ever,
forever and
amen.
ever.
Yeah, and I
And
realize that we
that's
have,
typically why.
I realize we have some where we worry about, oh, this was, well, we had proposed changes to the ordinances, or because we had some that were approved 30 years ago or so. So I can understand that. But in this case, they are making progress. They're just not making progress as fast.
Right. And I think if we were to think about the board's practice going forward and or our regulations, I think it might be safer rather than putting a conditioned timeline on construction to rely on vesting statutes. I've started putting in time as the circuit rider up in Farmington too while they're looking for somebody, and I had to deal with their vesting portion of the site plan regulations this week, and it actually looks like it's a decent section. So that could be something that we could think about changing the regulations so that we have clearly in the site plan regulations, this is when your site plan is going to expire if you don't vest it. That would leave some cases where they do enough, they substantially complete the work but don't finish it, so it is vested and they have the right to finish it years down the road under the prior regulations, but they would have to substantially complete the project, and you would be able to put a definition on what substantial completion is.
Well, in this case, they're asking for just 1 year. And our vesting stuff, I know we talked at least a couple years on some of that.
I think the current vesting statutes would say if you meet whatever you set for substantial completion, you have 5 years. No, there's a substantial, like, site work and then substantial completion of the project. So if you complete the substantial site work, you have a 5-year window under the regulations you were approved as to finish, or to vest the rest of it. Substantial completion then would mean that you have the right to finish under that site plan.
So they're asking for 1 year, so that falls well within what things we're talking about here. Yeah,
So even if they had just done the site work and we had considered it vested, if there wasn't that hard deadline that we had placed on it, we'd say they'd still have 2 more years
Yeah.
to finish it up.
Well, okay.
Something to think about.
Yeah, yeah, we are going to discuss it, right?
What I'd suggest if you want, rather than pulling paperwork, is do a flyover from Google Maps. They're typically 6 months
Yeah,
back, and that should give you an idea of where they're at.
okay.
Okay, 19-8 is...
19-8 is the design review.
Yep.
It was in front of you last month as a conceptual. Apparently they wanted more detailed feedback before filing an application, so they're coming back.
We have 2 design reviews this month?
No.
No, this is the only one.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was, yeah, no, sorry.
So I don't have a staff report for this one yet, although I will plan to write up some comments before the meeting. My first thought when looking at this was I've never seen a plan that shows the entire site. My second thought when looking at this was we've got a multi-use site now. So we're going to have the same kinds of questions since the resident is supposed to remain as a resident. Some of the same kinds of questions as what we just talked about.
Right.
Did the applicant provide any information on traffic and traffic volume and stuff like that?
I don't believe so. I've got a cover letter and a site plan.
I mean, there's a lot going on to this little area here, but I guess I'll be asking a lot of questions about the traffic. I mean, how does it work for intersections and stuff like that with the state? Do they calculate a what's the word, capacity for that intersection or anything like that?
In terms of like expected stacking on Bow Lake Road, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, I know we did some stuff with the school to let people go out the back.
They would, in order to do that, they would probably need a turning movement count of how many people are coming on this at a peak time, which direction they're going, because stacking on Bow Lake Road is going to depend on whether they're trying to turn left and have to wait for 2 lanes of traffic, or trying to turn right and only have to wait for 1.
Right.
So they would presumably be able to model all of that, but there would need to be some data collection to get to that point.
I just think about the busy times, the times that people typically grab coffee would tend to intersect with the school and the school traffic. And I also think about the people that are in school, coming out of the school exit, coming up to this, turning in, and then trying to go back out and stuff. And
It'll be
I,
an interesting,
yeah, I'm worried a little bit about some chaos there.
well, hasn't DOT asked for,
As a reminder, Bolick Road is a town road, so DOT doesn't have jurisdiction over the driveway, but they have asked for the opportunity to comment.
Well, and that's
On the
why I get back to
application,
the
if it comes
intersection
in.
there, because at some point, the state says, well, you need a traffic light, or at least a blinking light, or, you know, more lanes so that the people turning left can get into their own lane and not hold back the people that are trying to turn right.
Yeah, and presumably that's something that they would include in their comments back, that if this development on its own was projected to add a significant enough amount of traffic that they would want some off-site exactions to improve that intersection, that would be something that would be within the board's power to require, but it would take some collaboration between you and DOT because of the combined jurisdictions.
What is the off-site exaction, exactly?
That would be when you require the applicant to make off-site improvements because their development can be shown to have a significant enough impact on the local infrastructure. So an example would be a lot of the developments, Johnson's most recently, that they had to have an extended pull-off lane on Route 4. You know, when we were asking for engineered solutions related to Cooper Hill, there could either have been a bypass shoulder or a center turn lane that the applicant would have been required to contribute to. In that case, DOT determined that the problem was Route 4 is overcrowded, not that Cooper Hill wanted to put another 300 square feet of space into their building, so nothing was required of them.
Well, they did have
Well,
to
I
give
believe they were requiring that they donate some right-of-way
right-of-way,
for
yeah,
a future widening,
right.
but there were no other specific improvements that were tied specifically to that site.
Yeah,
And when Coburn put in Academy Way, they were required to put in an escrow account, which is ongoing, and they have to restripe that intersection every year and pay for it.
Bolick Road or Academy
Bolick
Way?
Road.
Okay.
So they might have
Every
something
year
to
we
say.
have to have a traffic marking company go out there and remark that intersection. That was part of the approval.
There was a traffic study done for that project. Is that, the data from that, could that be useful?
How long ago was it?
might have,
Yeah, it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
5+
relevant
years.
anymore.
You think
The more
there's-
traffic.
You think there is
There's
more?
way more traffic.
Well, it might give,
I mean, it
There
might
might
be
not-
somewhere to start, but
I
it's
think
not.
there are methodologies for inflating traffic count data, for lack of a better term. But I am not intimately familiar with them and how they're done. And I think that that would be information that would be the applicant's responsibility to provide. And then it could be up to the board to have some of those calculations double checked as well.
I sort of do remember at one point we were doing some work on, or we talked about doing some work on a red listed bridge. Is that down this road? Because we were talking about if
Well,
we
that's
stop.
way down. That's miles from here.
Yeah, I understand, but if we were talking about if that there was concerns about if we took that bridge out, of service,
Oh,
that there
yeah.
was so much traffic coming up through there. So I guess it goes back to what we were talking about. I think years ago, that might not have been as much of a concern, but now, because there is so much traffic coming up through there, and obviously coming out this intersection, it just tells me that there's a lot of traffic right through here.
Well, and the residential developments are pretty much finishing up. There was the second phase of the other one
Yeah.
the town has not accepted that road yet because it's not been completed, but maybe it's complete, but it hasn't been, all the houses haven't been.
Yeah, I think this was more reflecting that people are using it to get, sort of over in that direction when they're going for their business work and, their trades work and stuff like that.
Right, but I think there's a lot of factors
Yeah, but yeah, I guess,
adding into it, yeah.
yeah, but the general conclusion is that that road's getting busier and busier.
Yes, exactly.
We should probably also look into, I know when Aroma Joe's was proposed down at Northwood Garage, what they ended up withdrawing the application was because of traffic count issues.
Right, there wasn't enough
And
staff.
whether or not the board, we should see if the board required a traffic count for that location.
On both roads?
I think, if I recall,
Well, one's a state road and one's a town road, but
Right.
in fairness, one location was being held.
I
to
don't think
standard.
I don't think we did, because Aroma Joe's provided, this is just going off my brain, so don't take it as fact. The customer analysis or market analysis for Aroma Joe's for that location gave a certain number of, or ratio, percentage of people turning in.
Mm-hmm.
And adding to that the traffic count on DOT or on Route 4, I think that's what they based it on before they actually did an actual traffic study.
But who
And
did
that
the traffic
triggered-
study?
Pardon me?
Who did a traffic study?
They
Was
did
it?
not
it
do
didn't
it.
get
They
No,
didn't.
somebody did a traffic study in that area, either
Yes,
in front of the
they
garage.
did,
Was that
and they
the,
used it to determine that it would, the way I recall it, there were pieces put together from marketing of Aroma Joe's, other traffic studies, or just traffic counts on Route 4
okay,
that brought the turn-in traffic up to that potential location enough so that it caught DOT's attention. And DOT then said, your stacking will be too high, you need to mitigate it. And I believe that's why they withdrew. But I could.
DOT was telling them that they needed a decel lane,
Right.
and they didn't want to
Right,
take it to that level. so-
right. And there were complications with putting a decel lane in that location.
Right,
it would be
because of the
outside.
residents so close and. Mhm.
But I don't believe they ever got to an actual updated traffic study with current numbers at the
somebody
time.
did a traffic study. I don't remember if
Yeah.
it was them or Cooper Hill, because they did
Cooper
a
Hill
wet.
did.
Cooper Hill
Okay,
did,
Cooper
yeah.
did, Hill definitely did a traffic.
Okay,
Yeah,
I knew it was the same area,
Yeah,
so is
right.
it?
Never had a site plan.
yeah, that's the traffic study that shows we're drawing people coming into town from Portsmouth to go dining.
Right, yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, the actual, there's
Yeah.
more,
We
More
bring
people
more
come
people
from
from the east
there
to the
than
west.
there
Yes.
to go here to eat.
I think it was 60/40.
we're drawing,
That
we're
seemed to
sucking
be
away
the
the
right
business from Portsmouth.
We're gonna be the,
I don't know, I haven't heard that
Well-
Portsmouth was worried.
Well, of course they're not gonna say it out loud.
keep in mind who's speaking to. Mr. Selectman. Okay, so this is design roof view, so we don't need additional stuff. We can just give them cautions or requests that if they propose it as an application, we'll need, whole site plan, context site plan, other things. Okay.
Yeah.
Do do you ask for a traffic study pretty early on? Does that make sense?
Well, that
Because I
would, that
remember
would,
with the Aroma Joe's last time, it was like the traffic issues were sort of
yeah.
in everybody's mind and there was data, but it was getting to the point where, and it was a couple of months where we're coming before the board and
Yeah.
nothing, there was nothing concrete.
That was an actual application, though?
Yes,
So,
oh, yeah,
and this
right.
So I would say with,
I don't mean require as part of design review, but just to even bring it
I would
up.
say with any application, you would want to let the applicant know that you want more information as soon as possible. It would be a matter of whether you're accepting it as complete without it or not.
And I'm sure Mr. Frankowitz will be aware that,
Yeah,
from his history with us before, that
it's gonna be something
traffic will be
requested.
significant. Is that,
Yeah, okay.
I don't think he was the one involved for the other Aroma Joe's at Northwood Garage, was he? I think he was in
No,
here,
no.
or
And
here.
in that one, there was more or less reps from Aroma Joe's that were involved. They might get into it at some point. What's the application?
That was 1908. Okay. Yep, that's it. Didn't have anything. Okay, 1909.
Oh, is it?
You didn't get that one,
I
huh?
don't think so.
I could read that.
Maybe I did, just, oh yeah. Just ignored it.
As long as we don't try to email her.
Okay, so
It is so weird.
I gotta ask, is this the plot that was on, up for warrant article this past season? Or am I thinking of a different plot? This is it.
This is it. This is it.
Yep. This is it.
Didn't take them long.
Well, they can't be, it's gonna be fun, because they think they should not share a septic right now.
I believe that commercial building is where the bakery that we had, was it last summer,
Yes,
was going to be located?
yes. It was Payo's for a while, Thai. There was a, barber, hairdresser, salon, and something else. I think it was real estate for a little bit.
The pickle guy.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Pardon me?
The pickle guy.
Yeah, the pickle guy was there.
Yes, that's right.
So what's the frontage requirements?
And the
Pardon
house
me?
used to be a
What's the frontage
So,
requirements in the
bird
ordinance?
seed and feeders
I thought it was 150.
What was that?
at the house.
So this may require a variance then?
The White House.
Yes, they are
The
doing
front of the gray building has the 3 units in it, and then the White House to the left,
Oh,
I think
okay.
there used to be bird feeders.
Sure,
and-
that's right.
Like,
15 feet.
15 feet, yeah.
yeah, I'm old.
Looks like they're short 15 feet on each lot.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe they're asking.
They've got a 135 and a 131.
This one came in before.
Now,
we
on
subdivided.
the
Sounds like you got.
Page PC
Went
one,
in a couple of
3 of
times.
6,
He came
it says
in
frontage is
last
150
year,
on the
I
one.
think he came in last year.
Yeah, 'cause I think the variance is only for
He wanted
one
to
lot,
put in,
Yeah.
Am
so,
I looking at the
storage
wrong
units.
segment?
603 storage, you wanted
I don't know,
to
but
put
I
in
know,
a whole
I
bunch of
saw
storage
135.
units. That was it, he came as a
I'd have
concept.
to look at it.
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
I'm looking on 3 of 6,
yeah.
So am I.
and it says in the little blocks, 135.81 feet frontage and then 150 feet frontage.
In the little, where are you looking?
These
In the
little
center of the
blocks.
lot, proposed lot 29,
Oh,
proposed
oh.
lot 29-1.
That is the most bizarre thing.
I'll pull out the engineer scale tomorrow and check.
I'm gonna say,
Because the segment he has labeled at the front is 131.
right.
And
But
I
there-
don't see
there's an
another
additional-
labeled segment.
There's an
Well, it
additional-
looks like his marks don't go to the end of the lot, but
There's two things there, James.
Where's the septic on 29-1?
That is one of our many questions. So
They did have septic.
if you look between the existing house and the existing commercial building, there's
Oh, yeah.
approximate existing leach field,
yes.
which only shows the leach field. It doesn't show the septic system.
Well, that's because they don't know anything about the septic system, because every time somebody's come in to put something there, the guy won't even check the septic.
Exactly.
And that's why, like, the cupcake woman couldn't move in and stuff, because
Right.
we couldn't get any information on the septic.
Right.
Well, that
It's a
isn't
secret.
exactly accurate. It was because they could not get the prior owner, I believe, it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah,
but
they couldn't.
it was about a driveway permit, not about the septic. There is a septic, and those commercial units connect to the one that's on the other lot.
So we have sort of the same concerns about both the driveway and the septic. Namely, it's currently a shared loop driveway. If they're proposing to keep it, we need to see the easement language granting the cross-access. If that approximate existing leach field is about where the septic is located, and that is going to be on the commercial lot serving the house, we want to see the easement language.
And Dave will get a copy of this?
They will.
Okay.
They have not yet, but they will.
Yep. Sort of what I thought, which is fine.
And the lot immediately west of these is the one we just approved for the Antico.
Correct.
Okay. So that's,
Oh, hey.
Okay. Anything else that the board wants to see, a request from the applicant before we hear this?
what's, what's the ordinance now related to well radiuses?
Couldn't tell you the number. You're looking for a radius or setback?
Yeah, didn't we say
Or
something
protection.
about, isn't there some, and maybe that's why it's shaded, that it crosses the property line?
Oh, the,
Yeah, the well radius is
Well
not
radius.
supposed to,
yeah, it's not supposed to cross your lot line.
not supposed to go across the setback anymore, is it?
I'm pretty sure that, I think it can be within the setback.
The well radius?
The well radius wouldn't be a structure.
Right, it's not a
Yeah.
structure, but it has to be within the.
In the lot
It
line.
has to be within the lot line, and that is not. Well, and that's why they mention in the notes that it's the proposed well radius easement.
And
Is that
there's a-
what it's called?
I'll double check to see
Proposed
if they
well
need a
radius
waiver.
easement.
They have that.
Okay, so, but do they need a variance for that also then?
I'll double check the ordinance.
A variance for what?
I don't think they need a
They have
variance for it.
Wall protection,
No,
radius,
this refers to the easement.
property.
They would have to show the easement.
They are going to the zoning board for the, did you mention that?
Yeah,
Are you aware of
Susan
that?
mentioned that.
And as another point of interest, there was a mini golf on this site some years back. And an ice cream. Reynolds ice cream. Frozen
Yes, there
yogurt
is. That's been a while.
and a little mini golf out back.
That's interesting, Linda. That shows,
And did we
that shows the
consider-
difference in our experience, because I remember the mini golf, but that was before I even lived in the state. I was still in Maine. So that was 1998 to 2001.
Well, Linda, were
Time
there any
frame.
windmills on it?
Yes, there was a windmill. There was actually a church with a steeple. There was a,
Yeah.
Did we
and
consider
the
the
people
windmill to
that,
be
they
a
built it
structure?
themselves.
That
And it
back
was
in the
quite
90s?
interesting. It was more or less
You saw it?
kind of like little.
I remember going
incline-
past it.
I lived in town, I don't recall it.
I remember seeing
I'm
it
not,
because
I believe it, but, yeah.
I lived in Southborough, Maine, and I did a lot of work with DOT, so I'd shoot across the floor all the time.
It was not a mini golf like what we
Yeah,
see today, like
Yeah, it
the
was-
Seacoast or other places with the waterfalls and all that. But
interesting.
It was,
it was a homemade one, but it was pretty interesting nonetheless.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Nobody
back.
got the mic for Gary.
No, they just have a roller skating rink.
The rolling skater rink.
Oh, yes, I will. I also have one other item. Are we on internal business?
Yes, whatever's next on the agenda.
I'd just like to bring to the board's attention that, I did go to the Board of Selectmen several months ago, relative to the Millstone Realty, application fees and the request for an extension of time. The Board of Selectmen originally approved it, but subject to some conditions, one of which was contacting legal and having them put something together. I contacted legal and asked for that to be completed, and they made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and based on that recommendation, the Board of Selectmen have made a motion a week ago to not offer that 5-year term. So, in light of that, because and James can explain the part about the excavation permit, but they did not notice it for the excavation permit, which is an integral part of their application. We were going to go forward with that. They did provide updated plans and additional information. However, in light of the fact that we do not have application fees, and this was new information to them, I spoke to Peter Holden about it, and we made a decision, staff did, to not proceed with processing the application for the excavation permit, and James did not do a review of the updated plans that came in. They will be here in May. It's been continued to then, at which time they will
be able to make a decision and have a little bit of time to talk about how they want to proceed.
They will be on the May agenda?
I believe they're on the May agenda.
We had previously continued it to the
Continued
May agenda, but that
Right.
was before,
But I mean, they're continued, it is a continued, I don't mean they're on the agenda they're on the agenda because it was continued to be on the
They're
agenda.
not gonna come in.
But I think
But they're not.
they can ask for an additional continuance, they can ask to withdraw the plan, they can come in with fees, they can change their plan, I mean, that's up to them. I don't know what they're planning on doing, but they will be on the agenda as a continued,
They're on the agenda as a site plan review,
correct.
correct?
So
We
the
haven't- we actually
issue
have-
that we had originally was that they gave us site plan materials, but no excavation
Right,
materials for review under 155E.
right.
When we requested those, they submitted them in May, but they were submitted too late for there to be legal notice for an excavation permit application for the May public hearing.
Okay,
So we recommended that we not even discuss the site plan because it was going to be really difficult to talk about the site plan without talking about the excavation permit application.
sure.
So what we decided last month was that we would notice for the excavation, for April was last month. We're in May right now.
Congratulations.
So we decided last month that we would notice the excavation permit application for May and that we would talk about them simultaneously.
Okay.
So with the new information of the extension for the payment of fees being withdrawn and the fact that we would essentially not be acting on the site plan until fees were paid at this point, we gave them the option of us not processing the notice fee for the excavation permit.
Okay. So, if I understand this right, on May 20, whatever day, 29th, 23rd, we can theoretically discuss the site plan because that's what's been publicly noticed, but not the excavation.
But not the excavation.
And
we are in sort of a weird legal position where if we had known before accepting the application as complete that the select board would not grant a waiver to the fee, then my recommendation would have been that we not accept it as complete until we have the fee in hand.
Right.
And that the RSA is explicitly clear that for non-payment of fee, you can deny something outright without a public hearing. Usually that's sort of assuming that you haven't accepted as complete,
Right.
but I think, and this hashtag not a lawyer, hashtag not a legal opinion. I think that we still have on our side the leverage of our options are we can continue to extend this out, and the applicant can't really force us into a decision because that decision could be we haven't received a fee and we can reject it for non-payment of fees. So I think this is in their court to figure out how they want to approach the application fee
Right.
for the site plan. In part, this was a staffing determination that Linda and I needed to make as far as how much review I was going to put in, because the town isn't getting recouped for the time that I'm putting into this review until we get the application fee.
Right. Right.
So that was the deciding factor in terms of putting it off, and Mr. Holden understood that.
Okay. As long as the applicant's been aware that we're sort of in the, I'll call it a holding pattern for review.
Mm-hmm.
So then on the 23rd, if not decided by the applicant beforehand, or we can, really our only options are to,
Our options are to continue the site plan.
yeah, without discussion about any details until they pay
Mhm.
the fee, because you can't do your review.
Or to reject it for
Or reject it.
non-payment of fee.
Right, right.
So I would say, to the extent that there would be any discussion,
Yeah,
it should be fee related
Fee-related,
in terms
exactly.
of discussion between the board and the applicant about how they wish to proceed, what kind of timeline they expect before they can pay us, whether it would make sense to table the application if that's going to take several months and renotice when they're ready to actually come back. So I guess we have three options. They are to table,
Which
to
we call-
continue to a date certain.
Okay. Would we, when you use the word table, does that mean renotify?
Retable would be, we're putting it on the table, we are not stipulating a date for the next public hearing, and therefore we would have to
Okay.
renotice the public hearing.
Okay,
Continuing to a date certain would mean that we would not have to renotice.
correct. And is there a limit on how far in advance we can continue? Typically, we continue month to
As
month.
in, would you be able to continue to a date certain for the
6
December hearing?
Correct,
And
without renoticing.
you could, I wouldn't say that's,
I'm not saying that's
Best
wise.
practice.
I'm not saying it's best practice or wise, I'm just curious.
but I think, not a lawyer, not a legal opinion, but I think that would meet the letter of the requirement.
And our third option is to reject, based on that.
Correct. I would also suggest that we not reject this out hand this month.
Correct. I will.
But if there needed to be some sort of a discussion about a time frame for if we haven't received this in a certain period of time, we suggest that you either withdraw your application or we will withdraw it for you.
The, well, we can, maybe just, we don't have to waste the board's time on that. Curious as to why the select board changed their mind, but, or what the legal opinion was to go, to not accept that payment, because it sounded like at least the planning board was willing to, thought it was a good idea, but, or maybe I'm imposing my thoughts on the planning board. I thought it was fine, except, but it's not within my purview. But, and I don't want to talk about it tonight.
Well, I don't remember whether that was a public or private discussion,
Right.
closed door, so.
Doesn't
Just
matter. I
hold
mean,
off commenting.
it's not our purview, so select board said, no, we don't want to do the 5-year plan, so we have to live by that. Okay.
Oops, hold on a second. Related note, well, no, not related to that case,
Mm-hmm.
but related to Linda. Linda also made a recommendation at one point to the board or something related to the assessment software, at which a later meeting, I was able to make a motion to pay that. And I signed the PO, as did somebody else. Did a third selectman sign that PO?
Yes, and it's been sent as of yesterday, and
Okay.
the, Tim Fountain, the vice president, sent me an email back, said that as soon as they have the staff person to meet with us, we'll be notified.
Woo-hoo.
This is the GIS data.
Great, great,
So, good.
good.
So as soon as we can get the, oh, that was a prior meeting, sorry. I was about to say, as soon as we get the website up and running, we can add a link to the
Yeah,
GIS data on it, but it was the wrong meeting.
okay.
Same people, but.
In the interim, we have continued to not have the time to take Northwood's data off of
Yeah.
the
And we
Yeah,
appreciate that.
We certainly thank
We
Stratford
appreciate
Regional,
that.
because many of us have been tapping into it.
Yes, I know I
despite
have.
the fact
Yeah,
Yes.
I use it regularly.
yeah, it's very
It
convenient.
is very nice to have.
Very good.
And
That's
I
why I
think we
was,
even put up, that's what the public computer terminal is out front?
No,
No? No?
that's just tax.
Assessing.
Oh. Maybe that needs to change. Put a link on the
Probably.
desktop to
Yeah.
Northwood's GIS data.
If it doesn't blow the thing up. It
Yeah,
was
well,
built in about 1950, that
Go on that
computer, so.
computer?
I don't think it
Well,
ever
whatever,
handled
anyway.
it. It hardly opens the program, the one program on it.
Okay,
Can't ask it to do more than one thing.
okay, whatever.
Starting Windows 3.
Not
okay.
that bad. Anything else?
Yes, I have I don't know if you want to take a look at this tonight, but it's a very simple voluntary merger of 2 lots on Main Street, owned by Ann Beth Boudreau. Was a residential lot and a very tiny lot beside it that has a garage on it, and they have requested that they be merged.
Okay.
Is that garage you're talking about the real low one that often has
No,
a...
I think it's the one that used to be the old fire station garage beside it.
On the other side then?
No, on the left. House is on the
west
left.
side.
Right, on the west side, thank
The
you.
house is on the eastern lot. The lot that they're looking to merge is on the western side. So if you're facing her house, it would be on the right.
Yeah, I thought,
And their vehicles are parked between the house and this garage.
I think so.
well, yeah, okay, that's the one I was referring to. That was an old fire station? Mm-hmm. No kidding. They must have
Well,
had-
you know where the one is in East Northwood, it was the mate to that.
They must have had some pretty small
There's
fire
one
trucks.
Barely
right
fit
beside
it.
Harding Meadows.
Yeah, they were tiny. Original fire trucks were really
Looks
tiny.
like a garage structure.
Like a one-car garage.
So,
Is that still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or did they, wow.
They keep, I think maybe
That's the fire, or
one
the
of the,
forest.
like a
the-
forest
Oh,
fire
right, right,
truck or
right.
something in it, maybe.
It's different times.
so they already owned this, they just want to merge them?
Hmm?
Oh,
Which comes before planning board.
We've done these before.
We have, not for a while though.
Not for a while.
Not for quite a while.
you know,
Couple years.
Yeah.
The second page is just one is just a typed copy of the handwritten one, that's all, why there's 2. But there should be a little,
There is a signature block.
do we have to act on this officially as a group?
only to say that you're signing it. It's not it's just a FYI, and
Oh.
you do have to sign it per the statute, but it's not a approval process,
Okay.
so to speak.
Okay.
And I can,
Oh, we all have to sign it, or just Bob?
There's just, well, you can sign it underneath, but I think we've actually changed the form to just have the chairman sign it.
Okay.
and it's pretty much a formality. The idea is to give any review.
Do you want a second chance?
Send it over.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I take it, I have signatures,
Just one. No,
just one.
it doesn't. No.
Is that something $50,000 appraisal value automatically?
I think so. It just gets all in one.
No, I'm talking about, maybe I have this wrong. But if you have
Never mind how.
Hot air
two
balloon
lots
or a tornado or something.
That,
for a buildable lot,
and I think we can
But it's not a
adjourn,
buildable
and I can
lot.
sign these.
yeah.
So there's people hanging out. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
The only other thing is the selectmen did a vote to hold a public hearing on to update the fees
Okay.
the same night.
Yeah.
I don't know when it'll be scheduled at this point, but very soon.
Okay.
Just have a question. Have you all ever talked about tiny houses? The whole tiny house thing? Has it come up
It has not come up officially.
Recently, yeah, or efficiently,
Officially.
but
officially?
Did
There
I
is-
forward the?
You did.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
there's a lunch.
There's a, tomorrow, there's a,
Is it
not
tomorrow?
late notice, but there's going to be a presentation on them, so.
Yeah.
I
wasn't
think
there
we-
someone who wanted to put one up on the other side of Pleasant Lake on a lot? A seasonal one, a couple years ago?
No, there is one that was brought up, or put up in, or proposed in Barnstead. That's the closest I know. There was one on, well, actually, there are several that I know of in the area, but they are not on lots. This was, the issue with the tiny home, as we discussed it, and it was, as I talked about it with the owner of the one in Barnstead, is that they don't meet minimum square footage of the building. Inspector, it's not really a planning board issue. So, but coming up more and more and more. So I know if on the whatever the planning listserv is, they've come up in conversations multiple
I
times.
would think in an area where there's a lot of summer home areas, they're going to come up more. Because people want something to stay in that isn't,
Right. And the fact that you
it's a
can
little
truck
more
them in and
permanent
set
than a
them.
camper.
Well, and the issue is exactly that, is how permanent is permanent.
Yeah.
The,
Part of it depends on the certification too.
yeah,
The manufactured housing is stamped by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. RVs are not. They get some sort of stamp, but they're stamped by somebody else. And there are, I think, some units that are stamped by both.
Aren't, like, double wide, single wide, aren't they motor vehicles? I know they are in New York, you get a title, like you do your car in New York, for double wide or...
For the modulars or for a double wide?
For a mobile home.
Like a standard mobile home.
Yeah, for a standard mobile home, you have
Yeah,
you
mobile
have
home
like a
is
car
manufactured
title.
housing, but it's stamped by HUD, so it counts as manufactured housing.
Okay.
right. Tiny homes are typically self-constructed or
Okay.
custom design, not a whole bunch of other things. And I think if I recall correctly, the argument was for the one that was going on at Barnstead is that she was viewing it as a more than seasonal residents in the building, or town was viewing it as a trailer for not manufactured housing, so that they were saying 6 months, no more than 6 months at a time. And she was saying, well, what do I do in the winter then? So I don't recall, I left that job and haven't been back, and I have no desire to go back to find out. But yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to that.
Yeah, I was thinking I might be able to. I'm just curious as to where it's going, and there's going to be someone from DES there to talk about the septic aspects as well. So,
Right.
but if I can get there, I will.
Please, bring back a report. Bring back some examples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
There's one at Home Depot, I think. The large one on the end. The large one on the end, too.
Stafford, it's in Rochester, right?
I think it's in Concord.
Oh, Concord.
Yeah.
At the,
It's in Concord when?
tomorrow. The Municipal Association building or something.
Oh, right.
Right near Home Depot, in
Yeah.
fact, where the,
NHMA, yep.
yeah.
That might be an interesting video.
Yes.
Yeah. Why, can you get there?
Not tomorrow. I got a little leak.
Darn.
Just a little. A couple hours.
Move to adjourn.
Yes.
Second. Third.
Could Kyle share his presentation?
He's
or
ignoring
his
us
slides
now.
or something?
Yeah, I can ask him.
It's unlike him.
He has it, but
This is something he's doing as an NHPA board member.
New Hampshire Local
Yeah, he
Government
did.
Center.
Yeah, we did.